Yeah, cool. Well, good. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining. Welcome to another DeFi Raiders AMA. I'm Degenic on the DeFi Raiders account here with DeFi Trader uh, and Techno on the ZKitty account. And yeah, we're excited to learn about the ZKitty airdrop farming service, NFT collection, and some more fun things as well, I think. So yeah, thanks so much for joining us, DeFi Trader and Techno.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be jumping on the space, being kind of following along with you guys, and following your threads and like your AMAs and stuff. And yeah, it's just nice to actually be on one. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. I have interacted with DeFi Trader a number of times around it. The weekly thing we've been trying to get together. But this will probably be our longest conversation. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's fun being on the other side of the table this time. So interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So to get us going, would you just kind of give us a little background about how you all came together as a team and decided to do this project?
Wow, that's a good question. So it goes back a little bit. I think even around like DeFi summer, maybe when me and Charlie met. Correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie, but I think we met like right around DeFi summer in like
Yeah,
2020,
no, I think that's bang on
right?
because yeah, I remember joining your Telegram group like way back when,
Yeah,
and
I didn't even have a Discord back then.
right, yeah, and
We were all on Telegram still. I remember those days.
yeah, exactly. And I remember just being joining this chat and everyone talking about yield farming, which was like new to me back then. And it's like just thinking I need to get into this thing because this DeFi trader guy is making way too many bags, and I want some of that. um, and yeah, so I thought I'd just like join the party and just get involved. And yeah, that's how we kind of sort of initially connected, I think. And over time, as I've come sort of like more involved in crypto, like working, sort of like creating content for like asset management firms. So I initially got into the space and sort of freelancing, creating my own content and just building, experimenting. I think that's really how we became friends, just in your community, David, you know?
Yeah, so I started a private community with, around my content that I've created on YouTube. Uh, Mainly YouTube I started, and then went over to Twitter, and then TikTok, and just kind of built up a following on those platforms and created a community um, out of all that. And Charlie was one of the people that I guess saw one of my videos, and I was in all these degenerate like yield farming, like pool twos. If people remember yams, I was farming yams and comp with the comp token, and like pretty much like the start of yield farming. I would want to I want to say like right around that time. So yeah, I think we formed a little team around that and kind of we're looking like what could we do in this space? Where could we have like an effective uh, this is what we do day in and day out is we hunt for yields, we hunt for airdrops. I was the original uni swapper. Since then, I've received and have shown my community how to receive them as well. So yeah, that's kind of like where we got our beginnings from and how we kind of formulated this team here around the project.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, there's also like through working on Fluid DAO as well in the background. It's a project which we haven't released yet, and we're kind of keeping under the hood for now. But I'm really excited about launching that probably next end of next year because they're one of the actual sort of founding seed investors in ZKitty, and a lot of our members there. It's just a private community investment club. Have a stake in the ZKitty project and a token allocation of NFTs, and yeah, so ZKitty kind of like evolves out of Fluid DAO because Fluid DAO is aiming to become kind of like an incubator project where we sort of come together and just like create sort of innovative Web3 projects we want to launch from the DAO. And we sort of saw this like opportunity emerging with ZK Sync as airdrops became really just popular on crypto Twitter. I mean, you can barely sort of at one point a few months ago, every time you logged onto crypto Twitter, it was always an airdrop thread. We're all probably a little bit sick of them by now, but then again, they do bring a lot of value to the table, and you can make sort of life-changing wealth from them. And we realized that, you know, with this sort of evolution of like L2 chains sort of gaining traction and popularity, that we wanted to utilize some assets we had in the DAO, and that was the ZKitty artwork, which we'd actually been sitting on for a very long time and waiting to do something with. And we then kind of realized it was a great opportunity to launch an NFT collection. But then we also thought to ourselves, we don't just want to be another kind of like sort of degen mint just for the sake of like, you know, people be able to airdrop farm that collection. We thought to ourselves, like, how can we bring just additional utility and kind of like, you know, credibility and experience to like the project as well. And the utility was obviously building in the automated airdrop farming service, and it's like the experience is obviously kind of like Davis like sort of track record in the field. And yeah, I think just like, you know, I handle like a lot of the creative side of things as well, so like a kind of like a strong input in there with like a background in like creative content marketing, all that kind of thing. And yeah, so I think that's really how it kind of sort of formulated, and we started like executing on it about 3 months back, maybe a little bit more actually, 4 months ago. And it's just kind of snowballed since then. And yeah, like we've got some really cool stuff to talk about, but I'll stop waffling for now.
Yeah, very cool. That's a great founding story. Thank you for that. And before we get into you know more of the specifics of the project and you know and the roadmap and so forth, I know there are some more people in the team. So would you like to, you know, tell us briefly about the rest of the team and you know what their roles are and so forth?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm on like sort of heavily involved in the project management side of things on this project. So I should definitely know who's on the team. I hope I do at this point. Um, and yeah, so it kind of obviously started with me and David, and then we had a kind of we had to start with our creative team first because we had these creative assets from our artist Panda Popo, who's based out in Thailand, I believe, and yeah, so Panda's like a really talented artist. Had done a couple of MC collections before that, and one of our DAO members actually had been talking to him in the server, and he introduced us to Panda, and we kind of started working, create those assets with him, like quite a few months back, and then we brought in like Katerina and Vanya and Alexa to kind of help us create some of the brand identity, the illustration, and so the Webflow website around it. And that's kind of like really where a lot of our sort of online sort of assets like come from. And shout out to those guys who are doing really awesome work. And then dev wise, we have sort of Frank and Sashin involved as well. So Frank and Sashin have been kind of sort of sharing the sort of the front end development side of things, whether it's been kind of like creating like our whitelist like scraper forms, like our sort of whitelist like front end page for the mint and public mint, etc. And one thing that's like not visible on our website at the moment is and we're about to add it actually, and this is kind of some alpha we're actually breaking to you first, like here at DeFi Raiders. But we're about to announce our official technical partner on the project, and that's a project called Clip Finance. And those guys, like, you know, are very awesome. Like David actually recently did an AMA with them. Isn't that right, David?
Yeah, they were great to have as a guest on our AMA. They went over their tech stack and like the technology that they're using, and yeah, they've been very helpful. Glad we got connected with them.
Yeah, and they've been building out some some cross-chain like yield products with the kind of NFT fi component, and they provided us with like all our proprietary technology for the smart contracts. So that's going to be including like our mint contract, which is essentially like EVM compatible across 5 different chains. So we've got BNB, Polygon, Optimism, Arbitrum, Ethereum, and we're very open to obviously talking to other L2s we want to partner with to kind of like bring in some more chains to kind of like onboard users from different chains. But yeah, so that's a really kind of strong value add because that ability to have that accessibility to allow sort of people to mint from an EVM chain they're comfortable with or they spend a lot of time on is like really great for us in terms of like kind of like bringing in like user acquisition, all that kind of thing. And the really interesting thing which like Clip Finance have brought to this project, which I think is like super cool, is that although we'll have the ability for everyone to mint like NFTs on an EVM so chain of their choice, those 5 chains I mentioned, they'll also be minting that NFT, and that NFT will actually be minted directly to their ZK Sync wallet address because ZK Sync is our destination chain, right? So that's what that really means is that they can mint from any of those 5 chains mentioned. The NFT is actually minted to their ZK Sync address, and that allows them to simultaneously farm the ZK Sync airdrop. So by sheerly just minting ZKitty NFTs from one of those chains, you're actually farming the ZK Sync airdrop. And we think that's a really kind of like unique and innovative like feature, which we haven't really sort of seen anyone sort of like utilize for an airdrop sort of farming service yet. And it's also a really great way to kind of like onboard our user base like onto the ZK Sync chain and get them active there and just like create some more users for ZK Sync essentially. So hopefully it's going to be beneficial to them too.
Yeah, that's very cool. I'm sort of surprised. I think that's the first time I've heard of that sort of multi-chain mint mechanism. I've seen multi-chain NFTs before, right, where you can bridge them typically over layer 0, and in some projects UI for it. But so I'm curious why, how you evaluate the difference in those 2 approaches and why you chose, the one you chose.
Well, you've actually mentioned a very good point. So essentially, our contracts like are layer 0, and it just happens to be that they have the utility of all those 5 EVM chains like cooked into it. So yeah, so that's exactly how we're doing it really. And we're just kind of factoring this component where we're allowing our destination chain for the activity of our user base to be on ZK Sync.
Yeah, very cool. So good. Well, that's perfect segue then. So let's talk a little bit about what problems you're solving with this project. Obviously, one of them is, just convenience for people, but it seems like there are a couple of others that that kind of relate to it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the main thing when it comes to like takeaways for a project of this nature is that it's just like no more manual farming for like the end user. And people who join our community, I think everyone gets kind of exhausted by like the farming efforts they have to make. And I know I've spent like hours just kind of like trying to farm projects, sometimes like effectively, just like by myself with like a manual farming operation. And our super proprietary tech in house is obviously automated. And I'm going to say the word bot, which is controversial in this space, and I'm going to also drop the word Sybil in there. um, but yeah, that's going to be part of our strategy, and that allows us to kind of be very effective with like our workflow, and that's just something that you can't really do if you're a manual farmer because it just like takes a long time to generate a lot of transactions or wallets if you're farming in silo by yourself. And I think this whole idea of like earning airdrops passively is just like a really kind of like nice like hedge for people. You know, you may not want to like totally rely on ZKitty to do all your airdrop farming for you, but you may say to yourself, "Oh, okay, I want like a small allocation. I'm going to put that towards like my airdrop farming, get some ZKitty NFTs, and see if they can yield results." Because you know it is all very experimental at this stage. Um, and I think like also it's just David's like experience of like farming airdrops in the past. Like he's got all like credentials, and like that's kind of like something that a lot of people in this space like you just don't know where to start. And like I'll let David talk more about this, but like David knows where to start with like airdrop farming essentially. And if you're kind of new to the space, especially as a newbie, like it's often just really overwhelming.
Yeah, it really is an exceptional amount of work. I do a poor job even of keeping up with all the the V33 dexes I'm supposed to vote for every week.
Right.
So I think next question then, following on from that, is how, and without giving away the secret sauce, of course, but I know you mentioned sibling. I know that Sybil detection has, and Sybil being somebody using multiple wallets, right? For those not familiar with the term, I know Sybil detection is in its infancy, right? And most of the people managing airdrops don't do much or any of it. But it seems like a fairly low effort tech thing for somebody to eventually solve. So I'm curious how you guys are thinking of staying ahead of people tracking civils.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
we're going to be breaking up these transactions. So there's the main thing is to disassociate each address from each other address. And so what we're trying to do is break the connection between one address to another. So we're going to be implementing various technologies in our tech stack to do that. Um, it's really not as complicated as it seems, and I think that that's why it's been a little bit tougher to create an anti-Sybil detection mechanism, as what you mentioned, where there hasn't really been much effort going into the detection of it. And from what we've seen from the Optimism and the Arbitrum airdrops, which are, I think, some of the biggest ones as of recent, and them being layer twos, it being very similar to what we're going to be doing. I don't think that there's too much effort in the detection of it from looking at previous airdrops, and then also we do have plans and steps to implement any to mitigate this factor here. So we're going to do what we can, and then work around what we think is going to happen, and hopefully, like, nothing's guaranteed, but we're going to do our very best so that we have the desired outcomes that we're wanting. I think that through my experience of airdrop farming, of things that are like glaring issues to me, and I know like maybe how to work around those things, and I think we have a pretty good plan in place for this as well.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think like also the other thing to consider is that a lot of these like VCs and these protocols, which obviously they raise their money from the VCs, and this is the money they go and then airdrop. Like they're acutely aware of the fact that sibling goes on, and I think some of them are trying to like potentially like implement more measures to do that, such as like minting badges, etc. So like kind of like verified proof of human, etc. If you want to try and be eligible for an airdrop, but I think also like they kind of like factor this in to a certain extent that they know they're going to be civils, and they probably just like have that risk like assessment already made on the table. Um, and like the other thing is like I think we kind of act as like a distribution arm for them, like indirectly. It's like another way of like really looking at it. It's a lot of the people who want access to ZKitty want to be active holders of those tokens on those protocols. So they're going to do exactly the same behavior, trading strategy wise, as anyone who receives an airdrop. They're probably going to receive the airdrop, like maybe dump 80% of it or 100% of it, buy back in at like a cheaper cost, and then hold until the bull market arrives. So like rather than sort of allowing maybe a few like greedy whales to co-opt a huge percentage of the airdrop supply and like, implement that strategy themselves, we're kind of saying, let's farm people's behalves and distribute that equally relative to the share they own in the projects, aka the underlying NFTs. And I think that's like a kind of sort of quite good way of looking at it, really, from the perspective of the protocol, and to kind of like sort of justify like our rationale, and to like kind of like the ethics behind the project. Because like sibling is like kind of like a bad name for being extractive, but I think it's only really bad if you've got like one farmer being super extractive. But I think if you've got like a farming collective where funds are being distributed proportionately across like multiple wallets, it becomes like a much like more democratic like kind of system. Um, so yeah, hopefully some of that answers your question.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I mean, I think about it as most DeFi projects probably still consider wallets to be equal to users, but obviously they're not. And of course, I agree that a one whale farming 50 wallets or whatever is extractive, but this kind of thing isn't, because you're actually still accomplishing the goal of the airdrop, which is to bring users to the chain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly
absolutely.
that.
And then we're ultimately distributing the tokens to those users as well. So I think that instead of it just going to like one individual, with how we're using this example of the greedy whale, we're actually giving it to the individual users, which are multiple. It's many, many users versus just the one.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But I still, I still think about it from the perspective of, of the VC or of Arbitrum or whomever, that like I would want to be able to differentiate between a whale farming 50 wallets and a service like this on my end, and I'm not sure how I would do that immediately. So I think that could be a concern down the road. But I think you're right that it's a ways down the road before anybody devotes any meaningful effort to solving that problem.
I think we instead of looking at us from like an extractive point of view, maybe we could view us from a value add point of view from the project standpoint. For instance, when we're airdrop hunting a protocol or a chain, we are providing TVL and activity, and also possibly new users. If we bring awareness to this project or protocol or chain that we're farming, we might bring awareness to that as well. So it might get also new users from that indirectly. So I think that we have a way to contribute to these, to contribute instead of being extractive, in the form of TVL activity and new eyeballs as well. So I think that there's a little bit of more of a balance. We might be extractive because we are getting those airdrops, but we are contributing in other aspects as well.
Yeah.
Right. It seems. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, yeah, I like no, I completely agree, and it's it's increasing their adoption curve, and they're getting those on-chain metrics, which they can then go and show like more investors to then go and raise more capital to like expand their ecosystem as well. So yeah, I think it does like add in an interesting way.
Yeah, and I totally agree. But I think you're opening up a market of people who are too lazy to deal with it, right? And once those people receive the token, then all of a sudden they're not going to be too lazy to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. And I think at some point, we'd probably like, aim to open up the service and like make it public as well, after we're kind of happy with like the development of like, the proprietary tech, and then maybe offer a kind of like sort of Telegram bot where people could actually sort of activate farms themselves by sort of adding their funds to them. And that would probably involve like a kind of like an airdrop of like a native ZKitty token or something. But that's kind of like sort of way down the future roadmap, like quite a few months from now. We really also want to like make sure that the tech is being tested and like battle tested, and there's been a few successful drops and successful farming operations before we actually do that.
And that would be super cool, though. Something like almost like Zapier for DeFi. I would love to be able to just go create workflows and set them to run on a timer.
Yeah, exactly that. Like anything that's kind of like frictionless and just like has like few touch points, like I'm totally into it.
Yeah, that would be incredible. And that, I mean, that really starts to get into, to making DeFi less inefficient.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is the whole idea to try and like increase the efficiency of everyone's like farming operations, and be that kind of like percentage of that farming portfolio, which is going to be just like active. So yeah, and very productive, hopefully too.
Yeah, very cool. So good. So now should we talk a little bit about the specific airdrops you guys are targeting, or is that too proprietary?
No, that's totally cool. So yeah, the initial sort of airdrop we want to target is the ZK Sync ZKS drop. Now there's always that kind of concern that the snapshot will be taken before we actually get the project out the door. I do think that is like it would be a bit of a knock to us because it was a really nice feature we had to be able to mint the NFTs and farm the ZKS drops simultaneously. However, I wouldn't like let that worry people because there's going to be plenty more airdrops to come. Like this narrative, like is not going to just go stale. Like this is like now the kind of new way for like protocols to onboard their user base, right? So there's going to be lots of opportunities to farm protocols on ZK Sync, and we plan to obviously go sort of omni and like multi-chain and be farming other drops as well. So I think like in terms of opportunity, like it's vast. But to answer your question and be specific, we're just going to start with like the most hyped airdrops in the space, whether that's kind of like a layer zero, a ZKS, like and the other upcoming drops as well, and just like gently expand out from there. But I think it's really important to kind of like have a few sort of test farming operations and so like show like product market fit, proof of concepts, and once we've demonstrated that, we'll then move on to farming like other chains and protocols like across chain.
If I could just speak a little bit about that. So I think primarily it'll be the ZK Sync one. This is the one we've focused on with the major operations we've got going on. And then we also have plans to expand that to other chains if this is working as we expected it to. So ZK Sync is the primary one. I think we will be farming other things beyond that as a consequence of all the activity that we do on the chain. I think another really big one that we will farm in consequence of that is layer zero. And then besides those, it'll be like individual protocols for instance, like a DEX or a lending market, things like that. One that I could give an example of that we just saw previously come up was the Maverick airdrop. So that was a DEX on ZK Sync. And I think those will be ones that we end up getting as well through the activity that we're doing for the main airdrop that we're trying to get, which is the ZK Sync. So I think that we're going to do a lot of activity that is ultimately going to result in airdrops by our surprise sometimes. We're going to be doing things, and just from that in itself, we'll be rewarded with these airdrops. And I think that as long as we're targeting the biggest ones here, which is ZK Sync, and secondly, layer zero, the other ones are just like the icing on top. And I'm sure we'll get those as well. I think the advantage or the option that ZKitty gives you as an airdrop farmer is it gives you a surface level. It increases your surface level to get more airdrops, right? So we might be doing something on one protocol and we might be doing certain activity as well, which might be completely different from what you're doing. And as a result, might land you a completely different airdrop that we land. So I think that you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket in crypto, and I think that this is a way to also diversify that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like starting with the guys that raise the most money, of course. And I've been actually surprised lately that it seems like DeFi projects are continuing to be able to raise heavy duty amounts of money despite the general slowdown everywhere else in tech in venture investment.
Yeah, not only DeFi, but NFTs themselves have taken a really big hit within the last month or two. And I'm surprised actually, like how resilient this market continues to show, especially airdrops. It seems like this, even in the midst of the bear market, have been a source of activity and a source of where you see people are just still excited about this type of stuff going on.
Yeah, for sure. So now I have a hard question before we get back into the more specific project things. So my hard question for you is, do you think that any of the major airdrops have been successful for the protocols that held them?
Oh, that's a really good question. The most recent report that I read was from Castle Capital. They got like a really good newsletter that they wrote about it, and they looked at what the DAOs did for the ARB airdrop. And you'll be surprised. I thought that it would be used a little bit differently. Some of them gave it all to their team. Some of the teams, DAOs used it for liquidity mining. Some of them used it for bolstering their treasuries. So there was like there's many different uses that they had for the ARB token. Some of them just completely just sold all of it and converted it into stablecoin. So yeah, it's hard to say. I think that it does a better job than no airdrop. I think that having an airdrop is better than no airdrop, of course, but there's always there's a lot of efficiencies that could be improved upon. That's for sure.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. I think David summed up really nicely there, and I'm just going to point out a really obvious thing. If you're handing out free money, you get attention. I don't know any better way to get attention in this space, and attention is in short supply in crypto. So, like the alternatives around that and like that measurement of the benchmark success, I fail to see like any other kind of like marketing strategy which would be as effective. Um, but yeah, I think you're right. There's definitely probably some wastage and like a lot of drop off as a result. We're seeing like Arbitrum has hit big numbers. Like if we just go onto like any of the analytics platforms, and if you check out sort of DeFi Llama and it's like their user acquisition and growth, it's been substantial, and they're setting themselves up for another huge like bull run when we're sort of moving closer to the Bitcoin halving, and I think like ZK Sync is like chasing their tail now, and that's like that's why it's our focus. But yeah, a lot of our sort of like projections were based around the Arbitrum airdrop. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, I'm sitting here thinking about it, like the Aave is becoming a business school case study in ridiculously high customer acquisition costs that they have no hope of ever recouping in lifetime customer value, right? I don't think anybody's done that sort of analysis, at least not that I have seen for for something like Arbitrum. And here I'm thinking of is there and I'm sure this could be done, right? One could analyze the increased transaction volume against the fees generated by those transactions and compare that to the cost of the airdrop. But I don't think I have seen anything like that yet.
No, I haven't seen like a cost of acquisition report on behalf of Arbitrum or anything like that, but I would be extremely interested in reading that.
Yeah, I'm really interested in whether, right, you know, the liquidity mining paradigm or the airdrop paradigm results in cheaper user acquisition. I don't know the answer, right?
Well, we
Yeah,
know that there's a lot of inefficiencies within crypto, and I'm not doubting that this is probably another one of these.
yeah, definitely. And I think like, having looked at some of the Dune Analytics data on like the Arbitrum sort of airdrop, it was interesting to see that the average amount of tokens a wallet receives was around about 2,000 like tokens. Um, and I think like the drop was priced at, forgive me if I can't remember the exact number, was it about like $1.30 roughly, like on the drop date? Um,
Yeah,
so
roughly
like,
around there.
yeah. Um, and yeah, so like effectively that's like, the average drop. So that's kind of like, the customer acquisition cost to a certain extent. But then again, it's kind of like also just like flooding the market with liquidity when they sell, and then like more people have the opportunity to buy in on that dump. So it's like the game theory around it for like kind of like user acquisition is kind of just like there's so many like different sort of levels where people are primed to try and it's like co-op tokens at different stages, whether it's the airdrop or after the airdrop. And it's like that kind of sort of value chain and tail is like kind of like a really interesting one to kind of watch play out. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? I really want to be able to aggregate or to connect wallets, you know, into entities, right? Because then you could start to actually figure all that out. How many wallets are new based on the price and so forth. But yeah, good. That's a great point. So good. So now, should we talk a little bit about the other side of the project, the Creator Fund?
Yeah, sure. So initially we actually kind of was to try and do a CCO sort of angle, but then we kind of quickly realized that probably wasn't such a great idea because there'd be a lot of people like taking our artwork and trying to spin up like scam projects if we like kind of got traction and was sort of proving our model. Um, but we are keeping the creator funds like concept, and that's really going to be sort of to potentially create future collections. Because the interesting thing about this project is that, obviously Azuki had like loads of pushback recently when they kind of like just put out another collection, which didn't really seem to contribute to the value in the ecosystem they're creating. I mean, that's obviously a contentious point, but that seems to be a big uproar on Twitter recently, and it was kind of like seen as like dilutive. Um, the interesting thing about this project is like because of like the fact that the more funds we raise essentially enables us to go and farm more airdrops successfully in volume and scale, with the potential of receiving bigger rewards than distribute to our user base. Like there's an incentive to create more collections, and the project remains non-dilutive because the utility is obviously based around airdrop farming, and the value we bring back is the distribution of rewards and saving people time from not farming the drops themselves. So the creator fund is being kind of set up to essentially create like a pool of like funds where we can then onboard new artists who want to engage with like the lore and like the brand identity and what we're trying to build, and create sort of new collections and new generations to then go and raise more funds to then go and farm more operations at scale. And then there's also another component where we're kind of like interested in sort of pursuing the Pudgy Penguins kind of style sort of digital route. So that's like creating toys and like merchandise, and it's like engaging the community that way too. And I think like we probably do some kind of um, way of like people would buy a T-shirt, for instance, or a collectible, and a percentage of those profits from that item sold would then be contributed back to the DAO, and then also to another sort of percentage of the profits to airdrop farming, and then to the team as well, and then to cover like all the capex and the opex around that. But But I think that's going to be really interesting. And I've also, and this is kind of like a little bit of like sort of secret alpha, and hopefully I'm not mentioning this too soon, but I'm quite well connected in the whiskey trade, and I can basically get sort of bottles of really premium rare whiskey, like white labels, um, and sort of ships from Scotland, um, and I'm really interested in creating like some kind of like ZKitty whiskey, potentially for our community, just to kind of like add some kind of like novelty, like some interesting value, and create more of a kind of sort of community around it too. Um, so there's lots of things the fund's going to potentially be used for.
Oh, that's cool. So big plans for the brand. There was an NFT project that tried to do a custom batch of whiskey, but they didn't raise enough money, is my recollection. I don't remember the name of the project though.
Yeah, there's been a couple of like kind of Web3 like some crypto ventures. Like I was actually in talks with guys over at Shark DAO, and so like, we've created like some brand assets for like a kind of like sharkish whiskey, if anyone's familiar with the nouns community. And yeah, like I think there's definitely sort of like legs. Like the really hard thing with like creating a whiskey is obviously the regulation around it and the distribution, because distribution is costly. So if you can figure out a kind of distribution partner to ship the whiskey, then you're all good. And then also if you can find some of the right licenses to make sure your operation is legal, then you're all good too. And I just happen to know like people who have like warehouses with like containers of whiskey and kegs, etc., and barrels, and they have like these things called like Walga licenses in the UK, and you need to have one of those to be a distributor. So yeah, if you've got the kind of like the pipeline set up, it's quite frictionless, but it's having like the access to that, and that's quite difficult to find because the whiskey community, especially in Scotland, is a very close circle.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I actually have done some work in the U.S. alcohol industry, so I know a fair bit about the crazy regulations that are imposed on the industry here.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think yeah, no, I think it's definitely a lot stricter in the US compared to the UK.
I mean, yeah, or more, just more cumbersome. I don't know, I don't know about strict so much. It's just create. Let's create as many layers as we can, so we can pay as many people as possible on the way to the market.
Right, exactly. I mean, where are not gatekeepers in life? I mean, like, as soon as you like go into like alcohol and tobacco, people want to tax you. Basically, this is the way it goes.
Yeah, exactly. So cool. So now, I should ask quickly about the NFT minting contract because I know that's one that people will otherwise ask for me. Is it randomized, or have you taken any steps to keep people from peaking?
Yeah, so we actually can do that. We haven't actually cooked it into the roadmap because, in a weird kind of way, like we were just discussing, it's as much as we love the artwork, it's less about the artwork and more about the utility in many ways. Then again, the artwork is also awesome. So we haven't actually sort of factored in like a kind of like a chain link sort of a randomization yet, but we're going to like look at that because I think it's something that like a lot of NFT communities do ask for. We've just been very heavily focused on the other side, the utility and features on the dev sort of recently. But yeah, I think randomization is definitely something we can factor in, although we haven't actually implemented it yet.
So I just want to like clarify about how they'll be revealed. I think like through the reveal process, people won't know what NFT they get at the point of minting it. So then there'll be a period where they minted the NFT, they don't know what it is specifically or how it looks, but after a couple of days, it gets revealed. I think through that process, it's not exactly like random. Uh, like how like a Chainlink oracle would be, but it has the same types of, I guess, results. Like you don't know what you're going to get until after everybody else knows what they're going to get as well.
Oh
And
yeah,
then on
cool.
top of that, the fact that there's no really like rarity, all of them are considered as equally rare. Charlie mentioned that it's mainly about we have great art, but um, it's not to have any one specific one be superior than any other one. They're all entitled to the same thing, which is the airdropping operations and that type of stuff. So hope that answers the question.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm a little bit sad that I won't be able to, hope for a laser-eyed kitty that earns double or triple, right? But
Yeah, yeah, maybe. You'll just have to cross your fingers. Maybe you'll get one.
Yeah, cool. So then let's talk a little bit before we get into the pre-sale and roadmap. Let's just talk briefly about the DAO and your plans for for governance and if you plan to to decentralize over time.
Yeah, that's a very good one because transparency and trust is really baked into this. So transparency needs to take precedent so that people can have that trust, right? Because trust is not just doesn't show up; it has to be deserved. So I think the one way to do that is through, I think like the first layer would be through Snapshot. It's not governed on chain, but it is done through at the social layer. So there will be a multi-sig implemented, and there'll be core team members on that, and we will get signaling from Snapshot. I think that's the first layer, but to implement a on-chain solution is probably the best way to go about things through decentralization. Just unfortunately, there's not like a really good way of doing it with the operations that we have. So we will be able to do it for our main wallet. I think that the main wallet is going to be segregated from the farming wallets. So we'll have like a wallet associated with the DAO. And this wallet, I think, will have, we want to implement governance fully on chain for this wallet, but there will be sub wallets that will be delegated on behalf of, for instance, myself or other members of the DAO would be needed to delegate on behalf of the DAO. So in those types of situations, it's just not really feasible to do on-chain governance because of how the operations happen. So I'm also in conversations with somebody. I don't know if I'm able to reveal exactly who it is, but I was testing out their beta of a smart contract. It's a smart contract that they've developed that somewhat integrates into Snapshot. And what it does, it allows you to do a lot of really interesting functions within the Snapshot smart contract. And then through that, it allows you to do things on chain. So I'm probably not doing a good job explaining that because it was just demoed to me the past couple weeks, and I think that might be a solution because it gives you the ability to do all types of transactions, to integrate with other applications that you might need to do different operations with farming or governance. So I think that like going in the future, there'll probably be a solution for it for most of the wallets, and specifically the main wallet that is tied to the DAO. So it's I'm just gonna be honest, like it's a work in progress, and decentralization it happens progressively. So we're going to be implementing late, and along the way, it's baked into that layers of decentralization.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think like Dave was saying, the governance side of things is like slightly precarious for us because the nature of our operation, like we have to, obviously be discreet with how we're sort of allocating the funds, like outside the core multi-sig, because you don't want those sibling wallets to get flagged. So there is a component of trust. However, we also plan to create kind of like a council, essentially, like an airdrop farming council of like trusted kind of like airdrop farmers in the space. Like, so primarily probably through David's network as a KOL. And they'll have like kind of like insight into like, our inner workings to kind of keep the core team honest. And there's also going to be a kind of a risk assessment strategy implemented every single time we decide to farm any protocol or chain. Um, so we'd have like a risk scoring procedure sort of develops, and that would basically be to ensure that we get the most profitable drops. And I think those are things like risks relating to airdrop operations, whether they're connected to bridges or swaps, etc., or if it's kind of related to the fact that maybe that chain or protocol has like civil wallet detection. Maybe there's like a liquidity risk, like related to like yield farming or permanent loss if we choose to do some yield farming on those chains on behalf of the community too. Um, so there has to be a kind of like a low risk, like medium risk, high risk, and reject risk, like category essentially, for every time we do like a farming operation. Um, and like there will be, as David says, like trusted like kind of sort of counterparties that we can rely on. And I think like the people we brought on like through our pre-sale, which are obviously about to discuss as you mentioned, but we've got great people. Like it's like unidentified DAO, DeFi Raiders. We've got like Caesar's sandwich snacks, and we've got a couple more people we can't actually announce yet. But I think those kind of like proof of Chad and sort of trust is verified like through proxy. It's like you're always default through proxy, and it's like your network is representative of who you are. Um, and Dave has been very well trusted in the space for a very long time. So like I think there's like a lot of reasons to be reassured that even though it's a slightly opaque, like in terms of like some of our inner workings, that the people fundamentally who are backing this and running this operation like can be trusted.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I very much appreciate that. And you guys have identified and highlighted the problems, the reasons that participatory democracy doesn't work for projects and companies, right?
Exactly that.
And I love that there may be soon an automation framework to attach to Snapshot. That would be a great kind of middle point. Because yeah, I mean, I don't think even the biggest, oldest projects aren't fully on-chain upgradable these days via votes. I mean, maybe there are a couple, but certainly none that I'm aware of. I mean,
There
I
aren't
think the most.
that many. When I've looked at the DAOs that have any sort of treasury operations, there's a lot of them that don't do on-chain governance. I think one of the examples as like a beacon here would be Nouns DAO. They've done an amazing job with their on-chain governance and the procedures to conduct consensus. And if I was to use or try to like spot any one DAO out, it would be Nouns DAO, and try to incorporate as much as I could from them into ZKitty DAO.
Oh, nice. I'll have to check that one out. My favorite has been Synthetics, and I know I think they're close to releasing their governance modules. I think V2 as open source.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that maybe if you're going to consider our governance, it would probably look more similar to Synthetics versus Nouns DAO, but I think that both are good examples to look at and try to extract the pros and cons from each one.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And right, that was, I was thinking as you guys were talking about councils, that that's precisely the organizational unit that Synthetics uses, and I expect that what goes on within the councils is fairly opaque most of the time until it gets decided.
Yeah, I think that that's probably a similar structure that we would go in, versus like fully on chain and almost like a democracy, like a individualistic democracy where every single person votes, versus with the council only maybe like a handful of people vote.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely.
mean, or even tier the decision making such that that some things are council level and other things are everyone level even. But certainly, everyone is not a competent group to vote on a lot of things.
Yeah, agreed. And I think also we're planning on we've got some calls like teed up like this week. And by the way, when I mention this, like nothing's set in stone. There's like no official partnership, but we are reaching out to people like across protocol and having discussions with them about like our governance structure. So it's like very kind of like top of mind. And right now, like as Dave was saying, governance is always one of those things that's work in progress. So we're kind of like sort of strategizing a few weeks ahead of launch, like exactly how that's going to be implemented. But we feel like we've got the bare bones to kind of like legitimize the operation at the moment.
Yeah, you guys have clearly thought about this a lot more than I expected when I asked the question.
Yeah, a lot of thought has gone into it, and we want to also make mention of this, that we want to open this up to the community as well. It's just not the team doing all of this. I think governance should be a kind of like a what the community is thinking, right? So you don't want to go against the community. So thus, the community needs to be involved, and I think that this is a good place to do that. So there'll be like formal processes created, but even just saying something in the Discord server or maybe like on a Spaces, like any way that you're bringing attention to an issue and voicing your opinion, that's in itself, I think, some form of governance. But of course, we want to get this more structured and a much more like refined process of doing it.
Yeah, very cool. Makes a lot of sense. Well, great. So now why don't we talk a little bit about the pre-sale and the tokenomics, and then we'll get briefly get into roadmap and timeline, and then open it up for questions.
Yeah, sure thing. Yes, we kicked off the pre-sale about 2 weeks ago, and I'm just really happy with like the partners who have been involved in the pre-sale so far. There's a lot of people who we just really respect in the space, who are already investing like through that alpha group. DeFi Raiders obviously being one of them, and super thankful to all you guys and just supporting what we do. And the other people who came on board were Unidentified DAO, so that's like Theo Detweiler's like crew, and we did a private AMA in their server, which is like a text AMA, so lots of like sort of bus and bashing just to kind of like get the sort of the message out there and the value prop. But it was a really interesting conversation, and they're kind of like interested in exposure to our strategies too. So they took on a pretty sizable allocation. Like we offered the same kind of like amount of like NFTs to every single DAO and alpha group who we spoke to. And it's like some people have had like bigger appetites than others. But the good thing is that the distribution of like the NFTs is being spread out across their member base, and no individual member was allowed like a higher allocation than 5 NFTs per wallet. Now, of course, like people can send NFTs via wallets and do OTC deals, and then you can obviously have a degree of centralization through that. that we've kind of structured the proposed there's a pre-sale in a way where, you know, everyone gets like a healthy share of NFTs as a member within any of those alpha groups. And as to what that alpha group decides to do with those NFTs, whether they decide to just stake it all from one wallet or just like stake from their own individual wallets is entirely up to them. And yeah, also like, yeah, so Caesar came on board as well. It's really great to have him involved. We're in conversations with like two other like alpha groups, but I don't want to mention them just yet because we just started the pre-sale sort of process with them. But it looks like we'll be able to mention those on some more upcoming AMAs. And we've done like kind of like whitelist deals as well with their members of those different groups. So someone I've been talking to today is like Fade over at Primate Style, and we're setting up a whitelist for them. And it's like looks like quite a few of their members are interested. And I know we've been talking about whitelist of DeFi Raiders as well, and obviously unidentified DAO. And then we've also had a few private investors who've like done some kind of OTC deals, who've just kind of like, you know, essentially given us enough budget, enough runway, and enough like buffer for contingency for the next few weeks up until launch. And our target raise was like about 25K, and we're just short of that at the moment. We're about 21, 22K, like so give or take. And it looks like, you know, our last couple of investors are going to basically seal that for us with a slight overflow for contingency. So yeah, we're really happy with that because, you know, most of like our proprietary tech was like already kind of like sort of built in house with our technical partner Clip Finance, and a lot of the internal kind of like sort of operational stuff is just being kind of done through sheer determination and hard work, which I'm sure David will be being familiar with too. And yeah, and you know, we've obviously like had like contractors we've worked with, but the budget we managed to keep down, in order to like, you know, the overall sort of capex of the project has been relatively low just through partnerships and contributions from sort of active members of the team. So yeah, things are good, and we've done that like a sort of relatively small raise in crypto terms, but that's actually a pretty healthy marketing budget for an NFT project over like a 3 to 4 week time period. So we're hopefully going to put like some capital towards that and like see like our audience growth like spike gradually over the next few weeks. And if that happens, then we're going to have a, you know, hopefully very successful mint.
Yeah, very cool. And so people can participate they can join the DeFi Raiders server, they can join the ZKitty server, and it sounds like there are a few other DAO servers that people can join to get into the pre-sale, right?
Actually, I don't think we're having like an open. Yeah, for example, for the pre-sale, you have to be part of those communities, which are most of the time like private communities. So UDAO, you have to be like super active just to be in that server. I know a couple of people that got kicked out after like the first day. So we're not making it like super easy to get into the pre-sale. It's not like available for everybody, but if you know the right people, I'm sure you can get access to it. And for those people who can't get access to it, we still have a whitelist as well. And you can get access to the whitelist on the ZKitty server. And there's like some tasks that you could do, like follow the Twitter account, join the server, stuff like that, and you can get whitelisted as well.
Oh, cool. And you guys just started some Zeely quests as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. The Zeely quests. We have like the campaign set up and some things to do to get a whitelist through that.
Yeah, but we're going pretty hard on Zeely. Like we really like that platform, and the campaign has just gone live today. And shout out to Hamzat, who's also in the call here, who's been really helpful with like Zeely's strategy. Yeah, we just like launched a kind of cash prize pool, and we've also got like some whitelist giveaways through that. And like first prize is like $250 for completing the Zealy sprint over the next like 20-day period or so. And then second prize, $150. Third prize is $100, and then it kind of goes down in tiers, like towards the bottom, which is top 10. Um, and yeah, there's going to be loads of like sort of like opportunity there if you're a really active like ZKitty like member, and you believe in what we do. So you kind of get incentivized for your efforts, like helping us spread awareness around the project. And there's going to be consistent whitelist opportunities up until launch, but the ability to like procure whitelists and be obtained and get on the list will get harder and harder over time. Like our initial whitelist was like super easy. You just have to click onto our website, share an automated tweet, and sign your wallet address. And we scraped the back end like wallet address, and you shared a tweet to Twitter. And the only people who have access to that whitelisting now are the investment groups and alpha groups that we're talking to. So like we'd give you DeFi raiders like in your community the whitelist button link if they're interested, and that's like a private website link, and they would just like jump on there, connect their wallet, sign a transaction, scrape the wallet address on the back end, so we've got them on the whitelist, and then it sends out an automated tweet to their address. But no one else has access to that anymore because that's kind of like a privilege to like our investors for backing us.
It's just super easy to get a whitelist through clicking a button on the website, so it's a little too easy for it to be given out to everybody right now. But we did do it for the first 24 hours when we went live with the Twitter. And so anybody who saw us super early and who showed us some support with the tweet was given that whitelist spot.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, we managed to get like 1,000 whitelist signups in like 48 hours. And yeah, that's been really like a positive signal that there's people out there who want to use a product like this.
Yeah, very cool. And I can say DeFi Raiders is buying or has bought some NFTs with our treasury, so we fully endorse this one.
Good to hear.
So well, wonderful. Thanks so much, guys. Now at this point, why don't we open up the floor for questions? Would anybody like to hop up on stage, or you can tweet at us? Please raise your hand and I'll get you up on stage. But yeah, thanks so much, David, Charlie, for joining us. This has been really interesting. I mean, you guys have really put a lot of thought into this beyond, I mean, this could have been, right, a fairly minimal project. Give us your money. We're going to do some stuff. We're going to give you some money later.
Yeah, I think that it's like paramount that we present ourselves and the project as we have done so, and just continue to keep on the path that we've started here and just keep this momentum going. Just want to say like thank you everybody who came to listen to this AMA about ZKitty, and just want to thank everybody who has been supporting and like liking and retweeting and commenting on our Twitter. That's been like really helpful to bring awareness, and yeah, just want to thank everybody and see if they had any questions as well.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I hope you guys will come back and keep us posted as the project progresses, and particularly as you get closer to Fluid DAO. I think that sounds like that'll be a lot of fun as well.
Yeah. It's been a long time coming. I'm pretty excited about it too. So we'll have a lot more announcements coming out around the launch, which should be soon as well. So just keep an eye on our Twitter and turn on like a bell notification, join our Discords, and we'll put out a bunch of announcements in between now and our mint date, which is approaching pretty soon here.
Yeah, 100%. And just want to say a big thank you to everyone who attended the call today as well. Super appreciate it. And everyone who's joined Discord and been really active and sharing cat memes. It's been really fun. I'm going to do some like cat meme competitions to see who's made the best meme. We're going to start that this week. But also, yeah, big thank you to DeFi Raiders for having us on the space today. It's been a lot of fun to chat to you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks everybody for coming to listen. We appreciate having you all here. This has been another DeFi Raiders AMA. I've been Dejenic here with DeFi trader David and Techno X Charlie, and this has been ZKitty DAO.